Today I'm going to be addressing some of the steps and measures that 911 has taken to resolve phone capacity issues that we experienced over the 4th of July during our busy signal night, and then again a month later whenever the system was overwhelmed by the unexpected violent thunderstorm that came from nowhere, where we received a tremendous amount of calls of tree limbs down and power outages. In both of those cases, I firmly believe that it didn't have anything to do with the fact that we don't have enough 911 lines, or that we didn't have enough call takers or dispatchers staffed. I think what's happened here is that people in our community have forgotten that 911 is a precious resource and should only be used whenever they're going to report a medical emergency, a fire, a crime, activity that is harmful to people, animal, or property, or any suspicious activity that might result in harm to person, animal, or property. In 2010, our dispatchers and call takers took about 440,000 actual 911 emergency telephone calls. And in addition to that, there was another 178,000 calls that were non-emergency, which is like when the media calls or administrative lines, things like that. So total calls we took in 2010 was about 618,000 calls, and that translates into around 1,205 calls a day of emergency phone calls, and about 1,693 calls a day total that our dispatchers and call takers take. And so I ran a quick little deal of where we're at so far this year, and as of September the 30th of this year, we've already taken 339,000 emergency calls. So we're certainly going to go past the number that we had last year. So in answer to this, as far as what we have done, we've done a two-pronged strategy. Little internal, little external. One of the external things that we've done is we beefed up our public education. In the past, we probably haven't done such a good job of promoting public education. I think we do a good job in the elementary school age, but not so much with adults. So that's where we've come up with a public service announcement. We've come up with the palm cards that we're going to be passing out. We have developed and have already graduated a few classes in our 911 Citizens Academy. And I attended one of them last night. As a matter of fact, that was the third class. We've got the the class that it's free to the public. They're able to download a application online at www.sedgwickcounty.org, scrolling down to government, and then to public safety, and finally you'll find emergency communications somewhere around the bottom in there. Just click on that, and then there's a downloadable PDF application for the 911 Citizens Academy. We're holding those on, it's a 2-week class, and we have them on Saturday mornings from 8 to noon, and then we also have an evening class on Thursday nights, and we're hoping that that the public will show some interest in learning about the 911 system. It's as much their system as it is ours. They need to know about what we do, how do we answer calls, how do we dispatch calls, why do we ask all those stupid questions whenever a caller calls in. So again, we have those on Saturday. The next class is November 5th and November 12th, and then following the 2 weeks of the Citizens Academy, we schedule a one-on-one time for those participants to be able to come in and observe for a 4-hour period. I should mention that we require of the applicants, we do a criminal background on them to make sure that they haven't been convicted of any felonies or whatnot, and that's to make sure that we stay in accordance with our CJIS requirements, the state criminal justice information system that we have. Another opportunity that we have launched, and we've successfully graduated one person so far, is a college internship program that we have going on with 911 now. This gives a college student the opportunity to take an in-depth look of what we do in every aspect of 911, from call taking to dispatching to supervising to quality assurance, and it gives them a good opportunity to spend the summer learning about 911. Doesn't have to be the summer, but that's what our first graduate was of the summer. It's a 12-week. We require that they spend at least 20 hours a week during the 12-week period, and then at the end of that time that they're able to get college credit. On the internal side, we kind of tweaked the playbook just a little bit. Whenever our system becomes stressed or overwhelmed with too many phone calls, takes us off balance, we implement what we call the emergency rule. And the emergency rule currently is that first of all, we don't call back cell phone hang-ups. We know that about 90% of our cell phone hang-ups are going to be somebody who's accidentally dialed us, and it's not going to be a true emergency. So we discontinue calling back cell phone hang-ups. And in addition to that, we do more of an abbreviated version of our ProQA, which is our medical software. Whenever an individual calls in and they're reporting a heart attack or something like that, we activate the medical software, we start asking questions, are they conscious, are they breathing, those kind of things, and make a determination as to what level, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie level response is going to be sent. If we're asking those questions and we quickly determine that little Johnny just fell off of his skateboard, we're probably not going to continue on with ProQA when we're in the emergency rule. The newest addition to the emergency rule, and you'll get a copy of, or we'll hear it here in a minute, we're adding a new piece to the emergency rule. And what that is a recording that whenever a caller calls in, and we determine through the same series of questions that we would ask anybody, and once we determine that this is it isn't an emergency call, then we'll be able to send them off into a recorded message that basically provides them some information about consulting their local directory and finding the resource that's most applicable to their situation, and kind of putting it back on them and making them, instead of us being just a 411. You want to go ahead and play that for them?
911 calls are very important to us. However, the 911 system is for public safety emergencies only. Please consult your local directory for further information to help you with your situation. In the event you feel your call is an actual emergency requiring the dispatch of police, fire, or EMS, please hang up and dial 911.
So that's what the callers are going to hear. Now I haven't rolled that out yet to the troops. They're not going to hear it. We're kind of actually expecting that the time when that's going to happen is maybe New Year's Eve. That's kind of when we're going to roll out this entire new internal side of it. We know that 4th of July and New Year's Eve are two dates that we can plan on staffing for, and we know that we're going to be very busy. Thunderstorms that pop up and things like that, well, they kind of take us off guard. We can hire additional resources. We can hire some part-time, or not part-time, but we'll get some overtime going on and get some additional call takers in there. But we'll switch to the emergency rule pretty quick. It's kind of our answer to ERP, but I didn't want to call it that. Another piece that we're still developing, we're working with AT&T with, is developing a non-emergency queue. And that's another part of our partnership that I'm hoping is that we're going to be able to get you a non-emergency number out to the community. It looks like that's coming along really good as far as getting that constructed. Basically what will happen is that call takers will be able to sign into the telephone system at a certain skill level. The system recognizes that when they log in at that level, it opens up this queue. The numbers published out there will tell the folks, that call this number only for firecracker complaints. If you have any firecracker complaints, don't call 911, call 290-BANG or whatever we're going to call it. By calling in, they'll go to that queue, and then call takers who have been hired just to answer those kind of problems will take care of those. They will be able to enter them into the CAD system just like an emergency dispatcher is doing, but it'll take that burden off of the call takers who are working on the 911 side as well as the dispatchers. That's a little foolproof there, hopefully. They're going to be able to, once they log out and there's nobody in that queue, then you know that somebody out there is going to remember that number, and that's the number they're going to call because they don't believe that their situation is an emergency. So they're going to call that number even though the queue is not in operation. So that will automatically be transferred back into the 911 system, and the dispatchers will go ahead and take those calls. And that should be ready. That'll certainly be ready by New Year's Eve. Actually, the 1st of December, we believe we'll go live with it. We also have a video as when to call 911 that kind of explains it. It's a little long. It's about a minute long, but we're hoping that maybe you'll find some place somewhere to play it once or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Sedgwick County 911, and what city is your emergency?
Hi, I'm Randy Bargdale, Director of Sedgwick County 911, and I need your help. All too often, your 911 center receives non-emergency telephone calls that tie up the lines for callers who are experiencing real emergencies. So we're asking you to ask yourself the following questions before dialing 911. Am I calling to report a medical emergency? Am I calling to report a fire? Am I calling to report a crime? Am I calling to report activity that is harmful to person, animal, or property? If you cannot answer yes to any of those questions and life or property is not in immediate danger, please reconsider which community resource could better assist you. We thank you for your help in keeping 911 lines open for emergency calls so we can be there when you need us most. And again, I think that's the main focus here is that entering this public education initiative is just to remind the folks out there that this is a precious resource. It belongs to everybody, and everybody in Sedgwick County and visitors coming in from out of town. When they call 911, they have an expectation that somebody's going to answer that right now and are going to take care of their emergent situation. And I think that some people have forgotten that it is for emergency calls only. I've provided a few calls as samples of what we got during the storm. Also a couple other pretty humorous ones that we take on a day-to-day basis. So I guess at this time I'll answer any questions you might have.
Randy, how big of a problem does it become when, like on the 4th of July and during that thunderstorm, on a busy day, what happens?
Well, first of all, there's just a little bit of chaos going on within the communications center, because what happens is we have radio dispatchers who can do both. They can answer telephone calls and they talk on the radio. And I know, I don't know if you've ever experienced, I'm sure you have. Have you ever called somebody that you want to relay some important information to? Maybe you just got a promotion, maybe you are getting laid off, I don't know, but you're gonna provide this information to a loved one or a friend or whatever, and you have this exciting news, and you call them up on the phone, and you quickly find out that they're either preoccupied, typing away on the computer, and they're saying, yeah, whatever, or maybe they're engaged in a conversation with a coworker, and they're spending more time talking to that coworker than they are you, and you get frustrated because you want to tell them this important information, but they're not receiving it. That's what you can expect on one of those busy nights whenever a dispatcher who also has to share their time with the radio side of it, and they have to answer the phone call. And it kind of sounds something like, what, your baby's choking? Hang on just a minute. Okay, 25, what was your location again? Okay, I missed it. Give it to me again. Okay, hang on just a second. And so they're trying to split their time. Well, obviously this person who has called 911 has an expectation that their call is going to be answered, they're going to be taken care of, and they're going to have all the attention of the individual that's taken their call. That's what happens during a crazy night.
They're
being put on hold.
you know how many instances in the past year that would have triggered these new measures?
Well, most recently was the last two, the 4th of July, and then in August during that violent storm. And that's really been it. We can pretty well staff for things like we know that there's going to be certain busy nights during Riverfest, and so we'll hire additional folks to do that. We will staff additional radio channels so that the TAC channels so that officers are taken care of at the River Festival. We can plan for those. Most recently was those last two events, but one time's too many. Anytime that somebody calls up and they are taking care of somebody, maybe a cardiac call or something, they're calling in saying that somebody's having a heart attack, they expect immediate attention, and they deserve immediate attention. And we want to give them immediate attention, but whenever we have people who call in that for non-emergency reasons, well, they tie up the lines. We have 20 trunks that go into 911. The 21st caller is going to get a busy signal. And so if we've got 20 people calling about fireworks complaints and they don't want to be contacted by the police, they just want to report that there's firecrackers going off, well, we already know that. We're in the United States, and I would imagine that every city in the United States, there's firecrackers and fireworks going off, and it's Independence Day. So,
how many people are typically staffed at a certain time?
We have 28 agencies that we dispatch for. So I need to have at least 10 people posted as a radio dispatcher. I have to have a relief for the law enforcement dispatchers and a relief for our EMS and fire dispatchers, and then usually about 3 to 5 more call takers. So at any given time there's 12 to 15 people that are staffed on a shift.
Part of the reason you're getting more calls, especially in those instances, is because people are much more easily able to call 911 with cell phone?
Exactly. That's part of it. There's I imagine everybody knows at least a half a dozen 8-year-olds running around with cell phones now. Everybody's got a cell phone, so there's so many more cell phones out there. When I first came on in 2002, I do the statistical reporting for 911. And I was reporting at that time about 43% of the telephone calls coming in are from cell phone. I just did my KPIs last month for the manager. 72% of the phone calls that we're taking now are wireless. And so you have you have an accident out on the highway, and you now have 5 callers who are calling in to report that accident, which is good. I mean, we need that because we can't just assume that, well, somebody else called in. So we need that. So those 5 telephone calls, we expect them and we appreciate them. We need to, get those people some help out there whenever there's a situation. But it's that we're going to see an increase when they build a casino. We're now taking all of the 911 calls for the city of Mulvane when their 911 system collapsed. They entered into an agreement with us that we are now taking their phone calls. We took over we've taken over the Derby Fire dispatching. We took over the first shift Derby Police Department dispatching. We're now taking all of the Hayesville Police Department dispatching. So they'll forward those local phone numbers to us as well. So there's going to be another increase in phone calls that we're expecting.
So Randy, on the non-emergency number that you're going to put into effect, so let's say I'm an idiot and my power went out and I dialed 911. What will I hear?
We're going to go ahead and ask the questions, because there are people out there whose power goes out they need to call 911. If they're on some form of life support device or life monitoring device, they need to call 911 because they need to let us know that I only have 2 hours of oxygen left, or those are appropriate times. Westar does a really good job of keeping track of those customers, and they know that those people need priority service to get their electricity back on. But what's going to happen is after we ask all those right questions and we determine that this is not an emergency call, we're going to say something to the effect of, hang on just a minute, let me transfer you where you can get some more information. And then we'll go ahead and send them off to the recorded message.
And that recorded message
No, that you
That was the
you
one
just
you
heard
said.
it, and basically what it's going to
What's this
do,
other one then? The one that you said would go into effect December 1st.
the queue.
Yeah.
That would be when we know, say like the 4th of July or New Year's Eve, we know that there's going to be, a really overwhelming night. Then we may go ahead and publish that number and open up that queue so that citizens can call. If they need to report fireworks complaints, they won't call 911. They'll call this number.
How will you publish the
Well, that's where we're hoping the partnership with the media will come in.
Just ask us to
We'll,
put it out.
yeah, we'll get that out, and we'll know a few days ahead of time. I think this past year here, the 4th of July, it was on a Tuesday, right? Wasn't it on a Tuesday or a Monday? Something. I think what happened, I think that was kind of an anomaly. I think that people came home on Friday night and they started blowing up stuff. And they blew it up Saturday night, and then Sunday night, and well, now Monday is the 4th of July, so I have to shoot it up tonight. So we had, 4 nights of it. This next year, the 4th of July is on a Wednesday. And so I think what's going to happen there is chances are people aren't going to come home on Monday night and start shooting, then Tuesday night and start shooting. So I think that Wednesday night it'll be manageable, but I want to be ready for it.
Have you guys considered some kind of fee for all members?
Somewhat.
A fee? Like there there's a fee for false fire alarms if alarm companies go out, if the law enforcement goes out. Have you considered doing something like that if someone calls asking for a phone number or for driving directions?
No. It would be difficult, number one, to figure out who that person was on a cell phone. But we're already given a person pays their 911 tax with the landline and the cell phone, and so we're already collecting a fee on that. And I'm not certain the state would go for that. I know the citizens wouldn't.
So when they go into the queue, what happens after that? Does it just go on the bottom of the 911 list and take care of this when they can, or how would you guys?
Exactly. What we'll do on the on the queue that we're working on right now, it's a separate queue from the 911 queue. They'll be completely separated. We're looking to take that task off of the 911 dispatchers and call takers and place it completely on the people running that that event. And so what would happen is that if the calls stack up, they stack up. It's not an emergency call. If people have to wait for 5 minutes before they talk to somebody to report fireworks in their neighborhood, then they just have to wait. There's Edward Earl Jones now. There's Sherdale.
Do you guys have any concerns that if they end up that they're on hold, or they just figure out that maybe they're not going to respond, but to actually call 911 because this other line's not going to do anything for me, so I'm going to call 911.
Well, then that 911 person is going to be instructed to go ahead and transfer them back over to that queue.
I was going to ask something. Oh, when will the PSA start running?
Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah.
The 72% figure that you gave on calls coming from cell phones, what period was that for?
That was just the month of September.
Of this year?
Mhm.
Okay.
And it's been that way this entire year. We're over 70%, and we have been for a while now.
And again, on the numbers you gave for 2010, you said 44,000 were true emergency calls.
Correct.
And 178,000 were non-emergency.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that most people are just interested. I mean, the dispatchers they really work hard on taking the 911 calls, and sometimes they don't get the credit for that work that they're doing. But out of those 178,000 non-emergency calls, they're still doing something. It might be a police officer who's calling in to say, hey, I need that case number, or what was the description again, or something like that. The media calls in wanting information. Sometimes it's people who are calling in to report to us from other departments. Hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up that here's going to be the duty roster change, which requires them to sit down and take this information. Which brings up another point. One of the things that happened to us there on the 4th of July was that we staffed it properly as compared to other years. We had the right amount of people, But one of the things that happened, and I mentioned earlier about how dispatchers, they'll have a radio headset on one side, they'll have the radio on the other side, telephone and radio, and then they're having to switch back and forth. But another thing that happens is that if a police dispatcher is sitting there taking 911 calls, and then all of a sudden there's a shooting or there's a situation involved where the officers are really busy, a chase or something like that, they're going to go not ready. Now I've just lost a call taker because they're too busy focusing on this police incident. That particular night we did have a shooting, so I lost one call taker there. Fire dispatcher also had, I think, 3 house fires going on at the same time, so we lost them out of the pool as well. So as those events happen like that, we start losing resources in the room, and so we kind of get out of balance, and that's where talking about maybe this extra queue would help realign that balance.
Have you guys ever had a non-emergency number before?
No.
How long does it usually take for someone to answer a call? What's the average wait time?
Normally, if all the lines are open and we have it properly staffed, somebody should answer the phone within about 5 seconds. The first 2 rings that you'll hear on your phone when you're calling 911 is just getting through your carrier service itself, so we don't even hear that. So normally about the time that you're hearing the 3rd ring on your phone is when we're hearing the first one through the system.